My husband had completely abandoned his responsibilities, leaving me to shoulder the burden of caring for his ailing father and managing all the household chores. Each night, he would stay out until dawn, often providing only a paltry sum for our living expenses. Despite my deep passion for nursing, I had resigned from my job to focus solely on his father's care. Yet here he was again, asking me for more money. "We can't survive on such a small amount this month," I told him, frustration boiling over. "It's your duty to manage our finances within the budget. But there's only so much I can do. How can you expect anything from me when you contribute nothing and dismiss those who do?" With an aloofness that infuriated me, he replied, "All you do is bleed our finances dry without giving anything back. You're like a parasite." "How dare you say that?" I shot back, hurt and angry. "If I were to leave, you wouldn't last a day. Maybe you should be focused on keeping me instead of throwing threats around." He brandished the divorce papers, arrogantly declaring he was ready to end our marriage whenever he chose. After tossing the papers at me, he stormed out of the room. I picked them up from the floor, spreading them out before me. A rueful smile crossed my face when I saw the title, "Petition for Divorce." He was mistaken if he thought I would be devastated by our separation. In reality, I was prepared for this moment and had long envisioned a life beyond his shadow. With a mix of determination and resolve, I dialed my lawyer's number. "My name is Kayla. I used to be a nurse at a private hospital, a demanding job with night shifts and relentless days, but it was my dream. Caring for others has always brought me deep fulfillment. As taxing as it was time to reclaim the life I had set aside." I cherished my career deeply, but due to our conflicting schedules, Vincent and I rarely spent meaningful time together. Despite this, our marriage had remained surprisingly harmonious, free from major conflicts. However, everything changed suddenly when Vincent's father, his only living family member, became severely incapacitated. He could no longer live independently and was in desperate need of nursing care. Vincent, visibly distressed about his father's condition, asked if I could step in to help. He proposed that I leave my job to care for his father full-time, promising to work harder and contribute more at home. Although hesitant, I understood the gravity of the situation. I had always had a good relationship with my father-in-law, a kind man who often prioritized others over himself. I agreed to Vincent's plan, despite suggesting we consider professional nursing care. At first, everything seemed to unfold as planned. We moved in with Vincent's father, and Vincent appeared to uphold his promise of sharing household responsibilities. Even though we had to tighten our financial belts, it felt manageable. However, as the months rolled by, things began to unravel. Vincent's initial eagerness faded, and he gradually neglected his commitments. He not only reduced the financial support he provided but also became increasingly absent, leaving me to shoulder the burdens of household management and caregiving alone. Our financial strain intensified. My decision to quit my job had halved our income. I found myself balancing my father-in-law's care with searching for affordable groceries, often driving long distances just to save a few dollars. Meal preparations became simpler, especially when Vincent was out. Our living situation, once sustainable, now felt increasingly overwhelming as Vincent distanced himself, spending his earnings freely while I bore the weight of our challenges. Life grew incredibly tough. I stretched every dollar as far as it could go. New clothes and trips to the hairdresser became luxuries I could no longer afford. When the financial pressure became unbearable, I approached Vincent for help, but any mention of money seemed to irk him. "Hey, honey, about this month's living expenses. I already gave you the money," Vincent snapped. "Yes, but it's less than last month. I can't make ends meet with this." "Are you kidding me? Managing the budget is your job," he retorted sharply. "But the budget is too tight. Since I quit my job, it's been a constant struggle. Please, we need more for the household," I pleaded. What the hell? It's my hard-earned money. How I spend it is up to me, he shot back, dismissing my concerns. I'm not stopping you from spending, but you need to make do with what you have. Just because you were a nurse doesn't make you important. You used to earn well, but now you don't contribute financially. You're just a parasite living off my earnings. All I ask is that you keep quiet and do as I say. His words cut deep, and his attitude only soured further as I pressed the issue. No matter how much I pleaded, Vincent refused to adjust the budget to make our lives a bit easier. With no other options, I began dipping into my savings from my nursing days. Each month turned into a battle, juggling our dire financial situation while enduring Vincent's verbal abuse. Yet amid this hardship, my father-in-law became a beacon of kindness. Despite his challenges, he always expressed gratitude for even the smallest acts of care. Aware of our struggles, he even offered his pension to help make ends meet. He was genuinely compassionate and became my sole source of emotional support. Vincent's harsh demeanor and cynical outlook on life were hard to bear, but the time spent with my father-in-law was invaluable. His presence and support fortified my resolve to navigate these tough circumstances, allowing me to cling to the warmth and appreciation he extended towards me, even during the bleakest moments. However, my brief moments of joy were tragically fleeting. Nearly 3 years into caring for him, my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. That day, I traveled a bit further to the supermarket to take advantage of a special sale. Though I worried about leaving him alone, he reassured me with a warm smile and encouraged me not to fret. With his encouragement, I set off with a light heart, convinced he would be fine. Tragically, while I was away, he collapsed and never recovered. The guilt of not being there during that crucial moment weighed heavily on me. I replayed the decision to leave him alone over and over, and the tears flowed relentlessly. Despite my overwhelming grief, I knew I couldn't wallow in my regrets indefinitely. It was time to arrange his funeral. Vincent assumed the role of chief mourner, but it felt more for show than sincerity. Behind the scenes, he left the bulk of the preparations to me. Considering how much my father-in-law had supported me, I preferred to handle the arrangements myself rather than risk Vincent's negligence. In the midst of this sudden loss, I threw myself into organizing everything. It provided a temporary escape from my sorrow. The process was grueling. I felt as if my head was spinning from the weight of it all, but it helped lift me out of my depression. It was infuriating to watch Vincent alternate between shouting orders one moment and lounging on the couch the next, but I was determined to honor my father-in-law's memory properly. At the funeral, many attendees offered their condolences to Vincent. Unaware of the reality behind our domestic struggles, they sympathized with his loss, assuming he had been the one closely caring for his father. Their comments, such as, "It must have been hard to prepare everything so suddenly," and "You took such good care of him. He was fortunate to have such a fine son," were well-intentioned but stung. Given our actual circumstances, I maintained my composure, responding with grace even as I felt my patience waning. "No, it's not hard at all," I would say, masking the truth of our strange situation. "He raised me too, in a way, so I did my best for him." I clung to the hope that my care had brought him some comfort in his final years, wishing it was enough for him to find peace. "I too hope he appreciates everyone's presence today," Vincent said, wearing a practiced smile as he mingled with the attendees. His friendly demeanor and superficial conversations grated on me. Beneath his facade, he had done nothing to prepare for the funeral or to care for his father in his final days. I vividly recalled the sorrow in my father-in-law's eyes on the nights Vincent came home late, neglecting even to share a word with him. Now that he was gone, Vincent's pretense of being a devoted son felt unbearable. My disgust for him intensified with each passing moment, and it was hard to shake off. Even after the funeral, my disdain lingered. With my father-in-law no longer here, the primary reason I had endured our strained marriage was gone. Thoughts of divorce crept into my mind more frequently. I felt torn between my revulsion for Vincent and my uncertainty about making such a monumental decision. I was procrastinating, caught in the remnants of a life that once felt whole. The routine was the only thing keeping me afloat. But an unexpected incident soon brought everything into sharp focus. One evening, I went to the local supermarket only to discover they were out of a seasoning I needed. Opting to try another store a little farther away, I made my purchase and stepped outside. That's when I spotted Vincent, who was supposed to be at work, curious and cautious. I kept my distance, watching him. He looked around nervously before entering a building with a large sign for a consumer finance company, an establishment I recognized but never expected to be part of our lives. A chill ran through me, as if I had plunged into an icy bath. My body reacted instinctively to the implications of what I was witnessing, yet my mind remained eerily calm and clear. It dawned on me that not only was Vincent failing to provide adequate living expenses, but his actions were leading him into potentially dire financial straits without my knowledge. This discovery crystallized my feelings and the stark reality of our situation, propelling me toward a decision I had been avoiding. It was a revealing moment that highlighted just how far apart our lives and values had diverged. The revelation that Vincent had been borrowing money without my knowledge left me stunned. I found myself questioning how long this had been going on and the extent of his debts. In that moment, clarity washed over me. I needed a divorce. I could no longer envision a future with someone who concealed such critical aspects of our financial lives. My dwindling feelings for him evaporated completely. That evening, I waited for him in the living room, the weight of my decision heavy yet resolute. When he finally walked through the door, our conversation quickly spiraled into turbulence. "Vincent, you're back late." "Yikes. What are you doing up so early? What's wrong? Can I stay awake?" He shot back, clearly annoyed. "Nothing's wrong. I just want to go to bed," I replied, my tone flat. "Of course you do. You've been out until now." He dismissed me. "If you're going to be sarcastic, save it. I'm exhausted from working, unlike you," he snapped. "Right," I said, pausing to gather my thoughts. "Actually, I have something important to tell you." "Let's hear it." "I want a divorce." "Huh? What are you saying all of a sudden?" "I've been thinking about it for a while now," I continued calmly. "You've been living off me, yet you ask how I will survive after the divorce. You hardly provide enough for me to live on as it is. Besides, I managed before as a nurse, and I can do it again. If money is such an issue, then yes, I think a divorce is the best step." Stunned, he locked himself in the bedroom. The next day, true to his word, albeit reluctantly, he took a day off to accompany me to our lawyer. With a heavy thud, he signed the divorce petition on the lawyer's desk. To my surprise, our separation turned out to be simpler than I had anticipated. Throughout the process, Vincent mumbled about regret, but I chose to ignore him. After explaining the situation, I decided to temporarily return to my parents' home. They offered their full support, encouraged by their backing. I began packing my belongings, ready to start anew, free from the weight of a marriage that had become untenable. As I sorted through my things, I decided to clean out my father-in-law's room one last time. While going through a chest of drawers, I stumbled upon his will. Curious yet composed, I informed Vincent, who, to my surprise, erupted with unexpected excitement. He tore open the envelope and read the contents with wide eyes. However, his enthusiasm quickly faded into dismay as he read it aloud, mumbling that there must be a mistake. From the document he hastily dropped beside him, I gathered that the will bequeathed several stocks owned by his father to me, along with a heartfelt letter expressing gratitude. Vincent, in disbelief, protested, "No, this can't be true. I'm the only son. I should inherit everything, right?" "That may be so, but the will clearly states otherwise," I replied calmly. "This is ridiculous. This can't be valid," he sputtered. Though the signature of his father was unmistakable, the shock was too much for him. He fainted and collapsed on the floor. Quickly, I called an ambulance, but as I watched the paramedics take him away, I felt increasingly detached from his life. There was no reason to delay my departure any longer, so I finished packing and left for my parents' home. Once settled, I reached out to one of Vincent's relatives, who had always been kind to me, to inform her about the divorce. She listened intently, her expression growing more pained as I recounted my story. After I finished, she embraced me warmly, her demeanor awkward yet sincere. In a hushed voice, she revealed that Vincent had accrued a substantial gambling debt long before we moved in with his father, a habit that had started shortly after our marriage. His frequent visits to consumer finance companies had even sparked rumors in our small community. Her revelations added a new layer of understanding to the struggles we had faced, confirming that my decision to leave was indeed justified. The support from Vincent's relative was comforting, reaffirming that I was not alone in recognizing the difficulties brought on by his actions. It was deeply unsettling to realize that, while I had been oblivious, others in our community were well aware of Vincent's financial troubles, and the rumors had been rampant. Before moving in with my father-in-law, my life had been consumed by my job. Afterward, my entire focus shifted to caregiving, leaving little room for social interactions where such information might have surfaced. Meanwhile, Vincent had been misleading those around him, confidently claiming he would quickly clear his debts with his expected inheritance, a certainty he believed in, which everyone else seemed to know about except me. The rumors inevitably reached his father, prompting him to draft a will that decisively excluded Vincent, likely as a way to correct his son's misguided expectations and irresponsible behaviors. Vincent, who had carelessly accumulated debts from various sources, was banking entirely on an inheritance that never materialized. When he discovered he was getting nothing, the shock was too much for him, and he fainted. After a brief hospital stay, he was discharged and forced to confront the grim reality of managing his debts alone, now scraping by day to day. I, on the other hand, returned to my parents' home, taking time to gather my thoughts and heal before eventually going back to my nursing career. Being back at work, immersed in a profession I love, has been rejuvenating. For now, I have no interest in thinking about marriage again. My priority is my career, dedicating myself to a job that brings fulfillment and stability. Returning to nursing not only marks a return to normalcy but also a significant step toward rebuilding my independence and focusing on my well-being.